Okay, Hannah, before we hop into your session, I'm going to go over a couple things just to answer any questions that you might have beforehand. Before we connected, I pulled you some oracle cards. We're not going to go in the session, but I will send you pictures and their guidebook descriptions because that will deepen the messaging. I
Okay.
asked each one of your chakras what kind of crystals would help them with their healing, and I built you a crystal grid, which I will also send you a picture of. And
Okay.
then I will have the replay to you later today. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Awesome. Okay. So in the notes that you left me, it said I have a couple topics that I might like to go over, but I don't want to guide the session and lead the session. So
Yeah.
we'll see what comes up. Now, in between you booking the session and today, is there anything in particular that came up that you do want to focus on?
I think the affirmations that I need tend to come to me pretty easily. I have been in a state of flux that I signed up for, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I don't know. I tend to be somebody that asks questions like, you know, as they come up, you know, and when, you know, there's nothing that I'm so desperate to uncover or get clarity on that I need that nothing comes to mind that's super pertinent right now.
That's so funny you said the word clarity because you pulled a clarity card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so it's kind of just like, okay, higher self, what you got for me?
Hmm.
Okay. So we will go over the journey that I took with these different facets of yourself, and then we'll see what questions come up from there
Okay.
or where it leads and guides us. Okay, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. Would you prefer that I save questions like towards the end or?
No, you could just ask whatever
Okay.
comes up intuitively whenever it comes up, and you can immediately like pause
Okay.
and then
Okay.
ask the
Thank you.
question. It will not bother me. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So when I went into your energy field, oh, I probably need to draw you a picture so you can see what this looks like. This is going to be a very rudimentary drawing, but
No,
for
I
the
love it. Thank
context,
you.
okay. It's so funny that your cat's name is Ruin because there was like so many symbolisms that were coming up in your field.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a major theme.
Yeah, it was just a lot of symbols. Okay, again, excuse my rudimentary drawing. So,
No, it's good.
I had your higher self come forward and I said, "Hey, I'm here for Hannah today." And I was explaining, and she was like, "Okay, I need you to give her this gift." And she had a box, kind of like a jewelry gift box, and she handed it to me. And I said, "Oh, can I look inside of this?" And she said, "Yes." And there was a brooch inside that looked like this. Hopefully, you can see it okay.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Something along those lines. Okay. So I said, "Oh, what is this?" And she said just to refer to it as a brooch. Okay. And I
Okay.
said, "Oh, can I put it on so I can see what it does?" And she said, "Sure." And so I put it on, and you can energetically, etherically put it on your energy body, right? Moving
Hmm.
forward, if you so choose to do that. And so I put it on, and then all of a sudden, this man showed up, just appeared out of nowhere, and he had like a butler's outfit on, kind of like what you would imagine, like a black and white like suit, and he like bowed to me and he was like, "Hello." I was like, "Hello, who are you?" And he said that he has been your guardian for many generations, one of them. Okay. And I said, "Oh, what's your name?" Now when I ask spirit guides their names, sometimes they give me a very human name so that you can connect with them, and then once you connect with them, it's going to be something completely different, but just, for the tangibility of things. He said
Okay.
you could call him Edward.
Okay.
Okay. I was like, "Okay, Edward." I said, and I introduced myself and I was like, what are we doing here today? I said, "Is there anything that Hannah needs to see or work on or focus on?" And he said, "Yes, come with me." And I said, "Okay." So then we ended up in this place that was on a different planet, and I've only seen this one other time.
Hmm.
Okay. So we were in a place that had a lot of snow, and all of a sudden I looked down and Edward's with me. And there's this little girl standing next to me, but she's not a girl. She's part deer and part human, like
Okay.
a hybrid almost. And again, I've only met these beings one other time. But she was out here kind of like by herself. And I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she asked me to come down to where she was at. And she looked like she was like 8 or 9 years old, but honestly, age there, I think, is very different from like human years. And so I
Yeah.
bit down and she touched me on the forehead right here. And then I shot out into space. And I was like, oh, what am I doing out here? And then I zapped back in and was speaking to her. I was like, oh, you can astral travel out into different planetary systems, out into the cosmos. Okay. And then when I looked over, there were, I could see her tribe that she had like way far kind of off in the distance. And I said, hey, would you mind if I go speak to the elders of this tribe? And she said, sure. So she took me, and me and Edward went over there, and I was speaking to them. I'm gonna close my eyes so I can channel it. So I was speaking to them, and there was I guess the kind of like chieftain that you would use like human language for. He came over, and I said, hey, I'm not sure why I'm here. And I was explaining why I was here for you. And he said, we need a teacher for this girl. He said, none of us know how to astral travel, but she was born with this gift. And I said, okay. I said, are you requesting that Hannah teaches her? Have you ever done astral traveling before, or astral projection?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I started as a kid not knowing, what was happening or anything.
Got it. Okay.
But I don't know it I know it only intuitively. And I'm still learning all the language for things
Yeah.
because yeah, but
Do you have any, is that something that you're still kind of like training yourself to do, or do you have any fears around that, or kind of what's been your journey with that thus far? Because when I was speaking to this chieftain, I said, are you requesting that Hannah teaches her? And he was like, Hannah is not at quite the level enough, and we'll explain how we're gonna work on that, but not quite on the level yet that she would probably feel okay with taking on an apprentice like that.
yeah.
Yes.
I yeah, like I said, I'm still learning the languages of I mean all the words that we use here for, but I know it's something that is an innate knowing that,
Hmm.
I've always practiced. Um, and in my dreams, I'm working to get a little bit better control
Hmm.
over, that kind of um, thing. The fear that I come to most often is just that my earth life is so hectic and demanding,
Hmm.
and balancing an intense spiritual life that's coming heavier and faster than ever,
Hmm.
with staying grounded in a practical sense here.
Yes.
That's the only thing, that causes me concern with it.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from that, which might be from you, but it might be from these other facets, which we're going to talk about something later on too, that's causing some fears, is I am concerned with getting even more into etheric cosmic work, because I know that that can cause some detachment from my human experience, and I'm already struggling to stay grounded within it. And we're worried that if we keep on ascending up this journey, that it's going to make it even more difficult.
Yes,
Okay.
insofar as I know that one of my main roles is as a teacher, and that's a correlative thing, and I can't go so far inside of something that I'm not able to be present and and I'm a mom too, so yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Are you a like 3D teacher? Like in the sense of like, are you teaching kids or teaching like adults? Or you just as a
Mixed.
teacher,
It's
like in general in life?
in general, but also I'm getting a community arts degree.
Oh,
So
fun. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. What are you gonna do with the degree?
Well, you know, help people to understand that we're all creators and that that's our highest calling, and shift back to more functional understanding of our own sovereignty and the complexity of symbols, and protect and facilitate learning experiences for artists, which is everybody.
Mhm. So. Yeah. I could hear energetically while you were speaking that we're going to topple down capitalism through our modality. Yep. Yeah. I could hear that in the undertones. Okay, so that's great. You're very intelligent, by the way. Sometimes we need not that you need that praise, right? But I can tell that you are extremely high intelligence as well. And that's a beautiful gift. Okay. So with the fears around connecting kind of more into our multidimensionality and then wanting to help the humans that are here. Okay. And we don't want to detach from that too much because you have a very specific soul mission that you want to carry out. Okay. Why are those fears running of I'm going to start kind of disassociating is not the right word, but being like so vastly ungrounded from self? Like why do we have that feeling? Has that happened in the past? Is that kind of just like an irrational thought, or why is that vibration running in there?
Yeah, because on some level, I don't know if it's past self or child self, I'm aware of the issues that feminine energy comes up to when they start saying and showing people outlandish things that make sense. I mean, that's scary to the system. And has been destabilized, I think, and put under scrutiny in some very harmful ways, and shut down.
So are we afraid that if we start becoming too fringe, that we're not going to be accepted in the way that we need to infiltrate the system?
Can you say that one more time?
Let me go back to what I was saying. Okay. So if we start becoming too fringe.
What do you mean by that?
Fringe is like,
fringe.
Kind of,
okay.
Yeah, kind of like what you're saying as far as like on the outskirts of like, collective consciousness. Right? So if we start becoming too fringe, it is going to mess up our plans of infiltrating the system and being able to help people, because we're not going to be available to get in the doors that we need to, because we're going to be too polarizing, and we're not going to be able to carry out what we want to be doing here.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of the fringe. I'm not afraid of, it's really just knowing that I have to balance that threshold. I'm not afraid of being, and I'm seeing that symbol that you drew too, because visually that symbol makes sense, is a good illustration for what I'm talking about. And that line in the middle, that's what so I have to
I can totally see that.
So it's I'm not afraid to go in or upward or outward as far as I possibly can. And I'm not afraid to live in them, or to acknowledge. I won't be able to live exclusively in that 3D earthly typical oppressive state of being. But it's really it's just, I don't know, there's something about the balance of it that isn't that I don't have peace about yet.
Yes. Okay. So and I love Ruin with his hand on your shoulder.
I know.
Okay. So your higher self is asking, Why do we have these fears around not being able to switch our
Mhm.
energies
Yeah.
when we need to do that? Because she's saying like
Yes.
that is a capability that we have of let me adjust my
Mhm.
languaging and my frequency to make it more 3D.
Mhm.
Or when I'm talking to persons who are more awakened, I can raise my frequency and my languaging up here. So there is some concern about being able to switch that in real time when you need it because
Yeah. It's a
another
calibration.
yes, the calibration. So what she was saying too is a lot of these students,
Mhm.
whether they're students or just persons that come into your field as students, okay, under your tutelage, a lot of them you are going to be talking on multi-dimensional layers when you're speaking to them, and that's part of your gift that we're going to talk about, spiritual gifts, but you're going to be talking to them a multitude of layers. But I can hear the undertones of when you're speaking of saying, what if I don't frequency change with the right person and then something happens?
Mhm.
Like if I don't catch it,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so what comes up when I say that?
Um, yeah, I mean, that is something that, I've and in this, state of, flux that I've been in recently, and it's subsiding some, but it comes in waves. Um, yeah, I'm less aware of I know that I'm not catching, all of it in this consciousness, at least,
Mhm.
like, I'm not processing it, in the foreground. So, and I'm aware that when somebody isn't ready to hear something, that it can push them away, and not that that isn't a part of their path and isn't something that was going to happen and needed to happen for a period anyway. But yeah,
Okay. So higher self is asking, why do we think that we have to do that conscientiously on the foreground
it's
of here?
fair. Yeah.
Okay. Because she's like, hey, first of all, a lot of people um are still even working on the concept of being able to speak on these different layers. And you already have a deep understanding of that. Like that's not something that everybody is like necessarily privy to. And so that leads me to believe that you already have like an activated and open template for that.
Okay.
So your higher self is saying, why are we not trusting that we will catch? Because at the same time, those persons who've been coming into your field for you to mirror back off of and say, oh, that frequency wasn't quite right. Oh, that frequency wasn't quite right. Like you have to have persons like come across your field to kind of trigger is not the right word, but to showcase like the frequency stuff. Now, because if that doesn't happen now, then when you get deeper into what you're doing in your soul mission around these persons who that would not be optimal for that to happen with, at
Mhm.
least then we've already set our frequency channels how they need to be set. And so instead of looking at what's happening with these persons as like, oh, obviously that means I don't know what I'm doing, we're fine tuning our frequency channels right now with things that are happening on like a lower risk versus reward scale.
Okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What comes up when I say that? Or it's not really coming from me, it's coming from your higher self. But
Yeah.
she's
Um, I don't know. Can we say more about the risk versus reward?
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that you I'm gonna light this in if you don't mind. So what she means by risk versus reward is if you're just having regular schmegular conversations with people right now, that is not going to affect you in any type of way, like strangers and like family members and friends, right? But what I can perceive a little bit further down your soul contract and your timeline is that you're going to be doing some not necessarily radicalism type of work or arsenal energy type of work, but you are going to be butting up against the system a lot with people who are in power.
Mhm.
And those are the persons that we want to make sure that we're frequency reading properly with, because they have a lot more influence over what you are able to do in the avenues that you want to do them within. So we need to learn how to kind of be this multidimensional chameleon, if you will, and learn how to verbalize in a way that not only keeps us safe, but keeps our students and our, the persons who are under our tutelage safe, right? And so that's a concern of yours, because I can see that you can see further down your timeline, and you're like, okay, well, I need to keep my children safe. One, your physical children, your children, right? But also like all of these persons who are in your field, right? So that's sometimes the crux of being a timeline reader, is you can see so far down, and then you start second guessing yourself and worrying if you have the tools and resources, and how am I going to do that, and all these different things. But what you're not seeing too is all the stepping stones that are getting you there, so that you will be prepared. Just like these persons who are coming into your reality right now, and you're having this rebuttal with them, is so that you fine tune your abilities for when you do get to that stage, and you know how to navigate these conversations with these people, so that that risk versus reward situation, it's not something that you're even going to think twice about. You're going to be like, I know how to navigate every conversation properly. If that makes sense. Okay. So what comes up when you hear that?
No, yeah, properly and energetically, because I'm just starting to like become more aware of uh, extra sensory energetic processing that's happening, and it, I know I can't, I don't know a better way to describe it. I know I'm not ready to look at it too in depth, because I don't have to, really. I don't have to. I just want to, because I'm curious. I don't want to know how to tag everything, and but I don't have to. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think that you are seeing that you are going to have a very affluential position within the collective shift, and you're going to have a lot of students under you, and that's scaring you.
It is
not scaring is maybe not the right word.
Well,
but intimidating.
I'm aware, like you said, I know it's been made very clear to me that what I am gonna do, what the next steps are, and coming to school as a non-traditional student. Just turned 40 and I have 3 kids. I didn't expect to find community with all of the students that I'm going with, and so I've had a community lesson in a really beautiful way, and so that I have a sense of responsibility, that comes with that, and then lining that up next to the work that I'm gonna be doing. Yeah, yes. It's a lot.
Okay. I can see where people probably flock to you, because you have very mama bird energy is not even the right word. It's more like a Jedi type of energy. Does that make sense? Of like,
yeah, because anything
sensei energy.
Anything that people sense in me that they feel emboldened or strengthened by, I have to find a way to show them that that's also in them, that they can only see that in me, because it exists in them. So yeah,
that's a Jedi energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see what your higher self wanted to ask here. Okay, so there is a path and a track where you do go on this timeline where we're the infiltrator. Okay, and we're helping.
What do you mean by
helping? Yeah, we're helping dismantle all these things, right, from the inside out. And what you're kind of doing is, do you like Star Wars? Because they keep on showing all this Star Wars stuff.
It's funny because it probably was one of the first worlds that I mean, my dad was a huge fan, you know, so I watched the movies when I was a kid, and it was right alongside, like, we're also very religious growing up,
Mhm.
and I couldn't tell the difference between like the Christian uh world
Mhm.
and the force, you know.
Yes.
So that's probably why.
Okay. So she was saying that you were kind of like leading your own rebellion here, and the way that you're doing this is via art. Okay. So, because you love art, right? And all, just all the different things. So, but we're finding all these kind of like students and then helping them, with their creative expressions and helping them speak their truth and be authentic and all these different things on a deeper level, though. Like, I'm gonna help you all reawaken and I'm gonna help you,
Yes.
and we're gonna create a rebellion squad together to topple down all this stuff over here. Okay.
Yeah.
So your higher self is saying, like, hey, if that's what you want to do
Mhm.
that. Okay. But you also don't have to go about it in that way. Like if you choose, like, oh, I don't want to kind of like take on this kind of like infiltrator, like rebellion squad kind of role, like there's a million other ways that you could be helping in the collective. But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that's what your soul is like really calling for you to do, right? She just wants you to know you have other options too.
Yeah. Is one of the options being in both timelines at the same time, where I'm aware that it is, you know, an activation, not, you know, like clearing house, like clearing the spiritual, I hate to use the word like warfare because that's not, you know, exactly
No,
it,
I
but
know what you
like,
mean. Yeah, it's
yeah,
not that context. Yeah.
yeah. Can
Okay.
I be in both, you know, and where when that's too um destabilizing, you know, I can shift back to something that doesn't require the same intensity, I guess.
Well, you have autonomy over your soul contract and what you're doing. So if any point and you're like, this is not the vibe I thought that this was going to be, and I don't want to do this anymore, you can just say, I don't want to do that anymore. And you can
Oh,
kind of like cut ties with some of
yeah.
that, right? Because I see what you're saying. I see it's like, hey, okay, I will attempt to be this person. Okay. But if I see that this is going to create any type of chaos for me or other persons or, whatever, then I need to be able to get back in my human self
Yeah.
and just focus on more of the lighthearted art side of it and not do so much of this in your face activation
I
things,
won't be
right?
happy there. Well, I won't
Yeah.
be not even happy, but I won't be fulfilled.
Well, it's also okay. It's also okay to take breaks too. Like
Yes,
your
that's
higher self is like, hey, it's okay to do like a little bit of dabbling over here with the infiltrating like rebellion thing. And then if we get a little too burnt out on that, like it's also okay to take a break and just snap back into like, hey, I'm just helping with creativity and expression and like more of like the human side of things and the
yeah.
trauma and the PTSD that you're clearing out. That's okay too. There's times that I go through those phases and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff over here. And then now we're kind of like teetering though, and I'm starting to get into some frequencies that are not in congruence or are not making me joyful and happy. And so I got to kind of switch on back over here and then kind of go back out. So if that's what you want to do, that's absolutely fine. There's not going to be a timeline that you're permanently on that you're stuck on. And
Okay.
there's you got kids. Like sometimes your kids need a lot of more of your human,
Mhm.
and we don't have as much time to be doing this kind of like other stuff over here, right? And that's okay too.
Yeah, it hasn't even, I mean, I'm still in, you know, in school,
Yeah.
so but I'm seeing and feeling the urges and the pull and seeing, you know, things line up. So,
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay too. I think that there's a vibration inside that is saying like, okay, well, yes, I'm a mom. And yes, I want to be helping these students, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm doing my part in the collective consciousness shift. And if I snap back into Hannah, there's going to be like some guilt running there of like, oh, I'm not doing what I could be doing. Right.
Yeah.
Like just like I'm not meeting my potential. I'm not doing what I said or whatever, all these different things. Okay. Yes. But at the same time, Hannah decided to have a specific incarnation here too.
Oh,
Like
yes,
she
yes.
decided to be a parent. She want to go to school. She want to do all these things. And so
Yeah, and I
sometimes,
set my life up like that. Like I know, like I was a young mom. My youngest is 11, you know, and my oldest is 19. And so, yeah, I'll have the time.
mhm,
So,
sometimes you need to advocate for your human.
mhm.
Okay, so like sometimes I'll have like all these ideas of things that I want to do, and I'm like, actually, I just want to go sit down and watch anime.
Yeah,
I don't want to be traversing through the ethers right now doing all this like stuff, or I don't want to be thinking about all these things that I'm going to do in the collective and yada. Like, I just want to go sit down and watch anime. Okay, so I'm not going to do that.
yeah,
Like, Sage needs to go rest and have fun.
yeah,
Okay, so that's where we probably need to get a better handle on of like making conscientious decisions of when we clink in and when we don't.
yeah. Because it does get to a point where it's just boiling over, and yeah, and I haven't taken very good care of or responsibility for rest.
Boundaries with self.
Yeah.
Because you're at the point now where you have a clear distinction between your human and your multidimensional self.
Hmm.
So we've got to kind of take on a mediator role between them sometimes. It's almost like this third party that's coming in. Okay. And so and you're kind of like what we talked about with here.
Yeah,
Human, we need a third party.
yeah.
We need half of Hannah and half of multidimensional self. And we need to become the advocator and the mediator and say, I am going to conscientiously choose what I do and when I do it, period.
Hmm.
I am also going to advocate for my human more than I do my multidimensional self because she's the one living this incarnation right now.
Yeah, she's the battery.
Okay. She's the most important thing also because she's got kids.
Yeah.
It's not just her. Like she's got a whole, life here. Okay. So we're going to do this in the time that we're going to do it and we're not going to rush it. And if I ever feel like that we're dipping a little too far into what makes me uncomfortable over here, we're going to swing back over here and then readjust and reassess. And then we'll come back when that time is aligned or when it feels correct. But what we're not going to do is take me by the shirt and try to yank me to this timeline where I'm doing like just all this forceful energy type of work because that's not what I want to be doing.
Okay. And you're saying when you're saying self in the context of this conversation, you're meaning like my earthly mind or my highest self?
Okay, kind of like, okay, so when I think of, okay, so we have Hannah here who is
Yes.
attached to her human incarnation. She got the ego, she got the physical body. Then we have higher self who is also attached to this incarnation. Okay, that
Okay.
is leading and guiding you, kind of like future you. Okay, then we have this other multidimensional form that is a conglomeration of multitudes of different incarnations that is kind of overseeing parts of your soul contract in this incarnation because it's running very similar to other incarnations where you have done this type of previous work before of infiltration and kind of like this rebellion squad and things like that. And so they are sitting up there and saying like, oh, you have all these abilities and talents and you can do all these things and yada, 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 but they're not always taking into account what Hannah decided to do here.
Okay.
And they're saying, hey, come on, come on, come on, come on, do this, do this. Right? And sometimes you have to hold a boundary with them and say, like, hey, I decided that I want to do some other stuff while I'm here.
Yeah.
It's just a guide.
Yeah.
That's up there that's like, hey, I can help you do all these things. And you're like, okay, that's great and everything, but I also want to do these other things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, and kind of just being the mediator of all of these different facets of self.
Okay.
Okay, because that's where that tug is coming from that you're feeling, and that pressure
Mhm.
of like, hey, I could get you into this position, right? And they're not being manipulative, coercive, or anything
Right,
like that. It's
no.
nothing
Yeah.
nefarious. They're just like, hey, I have seen a multitude of your incarnations where you have done this type of work. If you open up your energy field, I can help you channel from these other incarnations so that you can step more into this position. But you have to be like, I don't want to go full force. I want to do that on the part-time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any
Got it.
questions about that before we go back to this
Dear
different
girl.
incarnation? Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So, and it all kind of ties in together. Okay. So I said, okay, well, I don't know necessarily that Hannah is at the position where she is able to take on an apprentice. Let's call her an apprentice. Okay. She's actually a different timeline version of you. This is a different incarnation, this little girl.
Okay.
Which is really funny because you have very deer-like qualities with your human.
Hmm.
Like you have very forest fae like type of like face and like features. So it's very cute. So she has like these little horns that come out of her head, and she has like fur on her nose, like very cute. So when I was talking to the elders, they said, okay, can you or I said, let me find you somebody that can teach her, that can teach Mabel is her name. Did I say that? Her name is
No,
Mabel.
you did. Okay.
So sorry, her name is Mabel, or she asked me to call her Mabel. I'm sure
Okay.
she has some other type of planetary system name, but for the context, we'll call her Mabel. Okay.
Okay.
So I said, well, let me find somebody to mentor her. And so I started going through kind of like this Rolodex of guides that I have worked with or that I have known through my etheric travels. And when I talked to, and I couldn't find anybody. And when I was speaking to the elder, I said, I don't necessarily see anyone that I would feel comfortable letting teach her. And he said, that's because we want you to teach her. And I was like, oh, me? And they said, yeah. And I was like, I don't know if, all these different things. And he was like, no, it has to be you. And I said, okay. So I talked to my higher self, and what I have done throughout my history here and probably other histories as well is when I work with people's inner children from these incarnations, my higher self is the guardian of those inner children if they ever need anything in the future after I work with persons. And she just checks in on them periodically and helps them with different things. And so I said, would you be able to take on Mabel as one of our students to teach her how to astral travel? And my higher self said, yes, she would love to do that. And then she said that she's also going to teach you how to do it.
Okay.
Okay. If you are open to that.
Yeah.
Because Mabel needs a travel partner.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a lot of work that is not even going to happen necessarily consciously. It can happen consciously. Like if you're like, okay, Mabel, let's go to the dinosaur realm. Let's go to the dragon realm. Let's go to the unicorn realm, wherever y'all want to go, or Lumeria or Mintaka, wherever you want to do, right? But at the same time, my higher self is taking your higher self and Mabel and doing some etheric traveling work together so you can get a better handle on your astral traveling.
I wonder what time that happened, because carry on.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, there was a shift, and I know that people, like, when they're signing up to work with you,
Mhm.
in a way, are, I mean, there's a natural affinity that they feel,
Mhm.
for you. But yeah, but there was a distinct, I don't know, like shift, like a filed permission slip or something that happened that I was like, oh, a little different.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. It was probably your higher self saying like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which will also help you. It will, in a roundabout way, also help you with the frequency reading through conversations.
Okay.
Because through astral traveling, you're learning how to change the radio stations, like the frequencies. And so a roundabout way will kind of help you with that. Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, but if you do want to travel with Mabel, you can go into meditation and ask for her to come forward and envision what she looks like. Again, she kind of looks like a 8-year-old girl, and she's got like these little horns and some like hair on her nose. Very cute. Have you ever seen the show Sweet Tooth?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kind of looks like that. Not exactly, but very similar. Okay, so if you have that depiction in your mind when you go in to like meet with her, it'll be easier to perceive her.
Okay.
Then y'all can just go on some travels if you want. Okay.
Cool.
So then I asked the guardian if he had anything that he wanted to relay to you or that he can help you with. And he said, yes, I want you to come sit by this fire. And so I came and sat by the fire pit, and he was like, look into the fire. And so basically he was sending me on like a shamanic journey. And all of a sudden, I felt all of this pressure in my throat chakra and my high heart chakra and my heart chakra. And it just got really intense. And then it started dissipating. And I saw you, and you were, have you ever seen people do light language with their hands?
Hmm.
Where they're
Yeah.
like moving
Well,
it.
only a couple of times, but yes, yes.
Okay, where they're
And
like moving their hands around like this.
yeah.
Okay, so you have that gift within you.
Okay.
You have the ability to work with light language within your hands. Um, you also have the propensity to speak light language, but that's a little bit on the fringe. I don't know necessarily that's a didn't want to get into, but if you want to get into it, you can, because you have that gift within. And specifically, it is helping clear, it makes so much sense with the track that you're on now too. So specifically helping clear out things within people's heart chakras, their high heart chakras, and their throat chakras. So heart chakra, we've got things that can be sitting in there with like grief and loss, a lot of self-concept things. Your high heart chakra has to do with like ancestral and generational trauma. And then your throat chakra has a lot to do with communication, expressing self authentically, holding boundaries, um, speaking your truth, all these different things. So that makes sense with what the track that you're on in life with art and helping people express themselves. But then also with kind of like the rebellion side as well. But you were able to clear a massive amount of stuff. Like your energy body clears stuff out in me just being in there for a couple seconds. And I was like, okay, thank you for that. So your higher self was saying you can do it with your hands, obviously. You can do it with languaging and learn how to speak light language. Not everybody speaks light language in tongues, however, what sounds like tongues. A lot of people speak it with their native tongue. Like I utilize light language with just the way that I normally speak. You can also do it etherically when you are speaking to somebody and you see that and you're asking their higher self, hey, can I give them some clear outs, right? Or help them transmute or alchemize things in your mind, either consciously or unconsciously. Your energy body can come in and do that type of light languaging on them without you having to do that on the physical plane. Your
Oh,
higher self said that your biggest trip up is going to be um, being perceived with doing things like this or speaking in tongues, if you will, like the universal language. And so that's why she was coming in and saying, hey, this is actually something you can do on the etheric realms with somebody's energy body where you aren't actually having to do that with your physical body. But it's the belief that you can do that and that you are available with those gifts for persons.
okay.
Yes. Okay. Questions about that?
Um, no, I mean, things are just like clicking into,
Making sense.
making sense. Yeah,
Okay,
because
clicking in.
I've been, I often, because I'm an artist and I think so much about the symbolism of
Mhm.
anything, I get stuck on, ideas. I'm like, why is this not, I'm not resolving the significance of this particular thing or symbol or whatever, and so yeah, you're definitely helping with some of this.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's somebody else too that I know that is also doing light language with hands. So
Oh, great. Okay. So you could connect with them, communicate with them. Honestly, if you go on to YouTube and you look up some light language practitioners that are utilizing their hands, one that will help open up your channels, whether you do it physically or etherically. Okay. Just bear in mind that every practitioner is different. Yes. And not all light language is going to feel in congruence or resonance with your own personal frequency field. And so if something does not feel right or something doesn't feel good, it doesn't have anything to do with that practitioner. That's not a frequency match for you, and we need to move on to something else.
Absolutely understand that.
Yes. When I was learning how to channel Reiki and light language, one, you probably have other incarnations who have done this previously that you can ask to channel directly from, not just learning with this human avatar. And I would just watch so many videos, and that opened up my channels.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just watching other people and imbuing my energy field with all these different type of frequencies, right? Yeah. Okay, so he told me to look deeper into the fire. Okay. And what I saw was you put your hand up like this on somebody's chest, etherically, and all of a sudden you pulled your hand away from their heart chakra and this big symbol came out of it. And it almost kind of looked like it's almost like a Celtic circle, kind of like with all these like kind of intertwined knots, if you've seen one before. And what you were able to see on this disc almost was their spiritual gifts. You were able to perceive them. And that's one of the things that I do is like, hey, I can see what these things are, but there's like a very specific way that you do it through people's heart chakras and like pulling this almost like encodement symbol out of them so that you can perceive it. Hold on, what your hair is all saying. Okay, that's why you also need this other gift with light language of clearing out their heart high chakra and their throat chakra, because that's where a lot of people's blockages are that sit on top of their spiritual gifts. So that's why they cannot see them. Yeah. That's why they do not understand themselves, because all of these chakras have to do with self-concept and boundaries and trauma and fears of persecution and witch wounds and like all these different things. So you can utilize your light language abilities to energetically clear those so that you can pull that forward and then relay to them, hey, this is what you have available to you for your spiritual gifts. So you're a spiritual gift perceiver. Okay. So what you can do for that to help you, because you already know how to do it, you already have the template, but it's more so like getting your human on board. Yeah. With like, oh, I know how to do this. Okay. So just researching about different modalities, like you don't even have to go super deep into it, but like, hey, let me do like a quick glance over what human design is, over what different types of Reiki, different types of light language, different type of quantum healing, like just real quick. It's unlocking anchor points in your consciousness. Okay. Once you kind of get the ball rolling on that, everything's going to start just coming forward. But it's like sometimes we have to give our like human kind of like these permission slips of like, hey, right, let's do some physical stuff to like unlock this, right? Yeah. Okay, so your higher self was saying that you are able to perceive people's spiritual gifts who are what they have incarnated in this incarnation with, because there's things that we have in particular to this human. But then if you continue down this path with this gift, you will be able to look deeper into their Akasha fields and find spiritual gifts and abilities that come from different incarnations that they can channel directly from. Okay. So that's the work that I do now after I got deeper into it, kind of like you will. And I can see where they've had like mentors or different guides that can come forward. And so instead of their human having to learn these modalities that take a really long time, they can just channel directly from that one. Okay. And it just bypasses a lot of time and energy. Okay. Questions about that?
No, I mean, that makes sense. I knew that I'd figure out the Akashic, records access and navigation in time.
Yeah. So you'll be talking to other people's incarnations, like deeper in as well. Yeah. higher self said learning about different modalities, learning about shamanic journeying that will help you be able to perceive deeper into people's Akasha fields.
Okay.
I will send you some videos for that
Okay.
that I really enjoyed. Learning about light language and chakras. Specifically, like you can learn about chakras, but just really focusing on heart, high heart, and throat chakra specifically for these gifts. Okay. And that can look like you listening to Reiki videos or you doing meditations for those specific chakras, like whatever calls to you for that. Okay. So now we're going to kind of get into your human here a little bit. So when I finished up speaking about these gifts, I saw a version of you in the past, in this incarnation, and she was looking very sad. And I said, hey, what's going on? And she said, or your higher self said that she is transmuting the medicine of a lover. I said, okay, what does that mean? And she said something about you loved someone, but it didn't work out. And it didn't exactly explain why it didn't work out. I think it was just not a frequency match or something like that. And it created a lot of sadness. And I could see her, she was kind of like turned her face away from me like a little bit. And when I was asking her, why is this affecting your spiritual gifts? Because she was coming up because there's an energetic cord running between them. She said, I'm worried about starting things that I love that will eventually, that I may eventually have to let go of. What comes up for you when I say that? Excuse me.
Yeah. I'm still not afraid to start anything but there's a step like after the initiation on like any task where I feel like the choice really is like the start isn't the actual choice, it's the and yeah, it's because there was so much the grief is related to having to, and I think it's related to what you called like medicine of it, live in someone else's imagined world with them to and end up in reality, in my experience of it, being like gaslighting, where I didn't recognize my own reality. Yeah. And so there was that paradigm again, me trying to straddle two different ways of being,
Yeah.
And so I'm still working at, really letting that go and getting past the steps that are the real action, getting more into those. Yeah. Because when you wake up in that position and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I am not you. I can't be you in this for you, yeah. So yeah.
I was explaining to her momentarily, so this might be something that you want to go in and have some conversations with about because she's still holding on to regret is not the right word. It's more so just like, I wish that this hadn't transpired in the first place because I got attached and I love this person, but I know that I couldn't be with them and I had to leave because I had to choose myself. And it's like, I wish I could have just like bypassed over that whole experience. Right. But at the same time, I was telling her, I said, it's very easy for us to attach to the negatives of the things that have happened and kind of create this narrative of self and others. But at the same time, that doesn't negate all of the good experiences that you had with that person, even if they were momentary. Even if it's like, hey, we had a really good laugh, we went on to all these different places and spaces. I said, we need to redefine our focus to, yes, it was a lesson learned. Yes, it didn't work out. Yes, we got hurt over it. But like, what are the things that we were happy about during that time? Because the reason that she's coming forward with these spiritual gifts in particular is probably because of your initial fears of, hey, I'm worried about getting too deep into this, right? So she's kind of sitting here like, okay, well, if I'm going to put all this energy into pursuing these things, and then I get to a point later down in the timeline where I say like, I don't want to be doing this. This is too much. This caused me too much grief and too much chaos. And then I have to switch back and clink back into my human and do all this. She's like, what? Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Right. And then I was trying to explain to her, like, you're not seeing the, like all of the beautiful things that are going to happen and transpire in that journey, and like all that you're going to learn, and so many people that you're going to help with. Like, she's just very much hyper focusing on like, okay, well, I see the propensity of these negative things that could happen. I'm like, well, what about all the beautiful, wonderful things that are going to happen along the way as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really because we also have a child together.
Oh,
And
okay. Yep.
so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I have some recovery to do still from, you know, being in that space
Mm-hmm.
of waking up and realizing that I'm betraying myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Are y'all co-parenting?
Yes,
That can be triggering.
not going well on
Yeah.
occasion.
Even
Sometimes,
even if it
as
is
soon as
going
I think,
well,
okay, this is a good groove we've got, and then, you know,
I co-parent with someone as well, and sometimes it'd be going great, and then sometimes it's like, what happened? And we're back in the old
yeah,
stages. Okay.
yeah.
So even if it is going well, that can still be kind of triggering to these past versions of self, you know what I mean? Because it's just this trauma that is
Yeah,
at the
once it's a
forefront.
pattern, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Any experience of joy or peace in a moment, you just know it's about to turn a corner. Uh,
Yeah, and then when we have a child with them, we're like, oh, now we're kind of latched to this person, and this is just gonna be something. So,
yeah,
so we need to probably explain to her, this past version, that hey, having a child with somebody in co-parenting is a little bit different than going about these multidimensional and 3D pursuits within my career and my soul mission. And I can hear her saying, as I'm saying that, okay, well, you're saying that I'm gonna have these students that are under my tutelage, and that, well, technically I'm gonna be courted to them. And so I'm telling her, these are adults. Yes, we can look at them as our children, if you will. Okay, but they have their own soul contracts, and we're not here to mama bird them. We're here to be a Jedi, not the mama bird. Okay, and we're here to mentor and guide them, but they have their own soul contracts. They are not in the same context as our children,
right.
like our physical children, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even though we like to do that, right?
Well,
But
I think sometimes too, they recognize that energy and need it.
yes,
We both know that I'm not, the
yes.
mom,
But
but
sometimes if they take you on as their surrogate,
mhm,
okay, but it's also not our job to transmute and alchemize everything for them, because
yeah,
that's not teaching anybody anything. So same thing kind of like with our kids, but it's different.
right.
It's just different. And so I'm explaining to her like
I am
the
not the mother you're looking for.
yes,
The
yes,
Jedi thing.
yes. And I'm
Yeah.
telling her the framework of what you're in right now with co-parenting with your child is
Mhm.
not the same framework that you will be working within with these choices that you are making within your career. So we need to help her understand that distinction. And we also need to help her understand your child chose to be,
Yes. Oh, very much
have these
so.
parents. Okay, so like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily it is something that you and all three of y'all decided before you got here, right?
I know.
So you have a little bit more autonomy within your career than you do within your family dynamics, because
Yes.
right? Okay, because we're not taking all three of these persons into account over here. So that's a whole different framework than this over here. So that's what we need to explain to her. Like, this is not the same.
The scary thing about it for me is, and I don't use that like language of like fear very often, but is the as the pattern emerged with him, and I knew I can't maintain this, I can't be in this. You know, and all of the grief that came with processing that, and knowing that she chose us, you know, for certain things, and to sort of be to model coming to terms certain lessons, you know. And I can see, you know, the lessons in her that she's picked up from me, and is learning, practicing in her own way. And she's also practicing that with his lessons. But I've so much trauma from watching him have to learn things, and now I'm watching her, you know.
Double trauma.
So yeah, but that is, I know I'm not his mother, and I know that, you know, as much as our souls, you know, have been connected, it wasn't my job to facilitate his healing and learning, but it kind of is with her. You know,
That's what we're talking about with this
ways.
other version. Like, hey, no, it is kind of my responsibility to and take on this transmutation and this alchemization.
the grief with all of that, you know, watching the previous struggles and, you know, ways that we both dealt with resisting the lessons that he had to come to terms with.
If it gives you any solidarity, I'm going through the exact same thing that you're going through with me.
It does. It does.
And it is difficult to traverse. And it comes with sometimes a lot of shame and guilt, because you're like, why did I allow this to happen? And now I am seeing the after effects, not only from this other person, but also from me.
That's the thing.
And I'm trying to fix this right now. And it's hard because I'm trying to battle against this other person over here. And I'm like, oh, some of this was my doing. And so now I'm feeling bad because of that. And then like, there's only so much you can do when you are co-parenting and you have like a completely different framework going on over here with somebody else. And we're also trying to let our child have their own experience.
Sovereignty and
sovereignty and things like that. So I get it. It's understanding things on a dualistic lens of human and multidimensional, and sometimes those things really conflict with one another.
Yeah. Is there anything that I need to I guess find a way, and it's just started to occur to me that I really need to like energetically connect with her team. You know, I've always felt like I can have conversations with her past selves, but I don't know. There's
like, is there anything that wants to come through on her side? Yeah. I get now. I don't, and I know that's not what you're asking me to do, but just for the context, if anybody else is listening, I don't read children or anybody else's soul contracts. Only the person I'm speaking to. I never actually read children, but I will read through your lenses in the right backwards mirror effect. So what your higher self wants to say to you in regards to her. Okay, so wait, let me channel down what she wants to say. So you have had to experience in this incarnation some heavy bouts of, we'll call it abuse, and whatever that means. Okay, that's not always physical abuse. It could be psychological, emotional abuse as well, maybe physical. And you broke out of that matrix, that generational trauma, so that you could clear the path for your daughter to not have to experience that, because it is a repeating pattern in your ancestral lineage. Because you have a lot of highly empathic persons in your generational lineage that are attractors for narcissists.
Yeah.
And you are one of the persons in your lineage that have stepped outside of that matrix and said, I'm not doing this anymore. And she, your daughter, is going through her own lessons with him right now in a much more graceful way. And that she will also have this awakening within herself of, I am not putting up with this either. So you had to take the brunt of that so that she did not have to, with some other type of relationship in her future dynamics.
Okay.
So at the same time that we are having this guilt over, oh, you know, why did I do this? And I let this go on for so long. And now she's experiencing this. And, you know, I caused something, you know, all these different things. On a higher multidimensional plane, you did the best thing that you could for her. And we have to give ourselves more grace and compassion, because otherwise that would have continued in your generational line. And then she would have experienced the exact same thing in another relationship in the future. But for you to take the brunt of it and say, like, hey, let me show you how I will not put up with this. So that when she experiences it with him, because I assume that she probably is right now in some type of capacity, and that will continue as she gets older, okay, in whatever level that means, she will have the, what's the word she's saying? The imprint of what you have done to pull away from that. And she will say, I'm not dealing with that either. So that way, when she gets older and she gets into her own relationship dynamics, she's already worked through it and doesn't have the programming, because she's experiencing it in real time as a child with a mother who has already cleared those things out. Okay. But she needs to experience it as a, let me see what she's saying. She needs to experience it in the malleable form that she is right now, so that it fundamentally sets in with her, so she does not have to experience that in her adult relationships. So in essence, like, yeah, this sucks, like what's happening right now, but it's going to set her up for better success in the future, because this is a light form of manipulation and narcissism and gaslighting and things of that nature. Nothing like that happened with you. This is like a very light form. So that way we can just clear that out now.
Like an energetic vaccine.
We can just clear that out so that when she gets older, she's like, nope, not doing this. My mom stepped away from this, and she kept on saying, like, hey, we need to be strong. We need to hold boundaries. We don't need to allow people to talk to us this way. Like, really have this really good fortitude, because otherwise, if you hadn't have done that, then she would have ended up in the same cycle.
Yeah.
So yes and no, like with the guilt. Okay. So your higher self's like, hey, we really need to show ourselves more compassion and empathy for taking on the brunt of that, so that she could live an easier experience, because she's living such a vastly easier experience than she would have if you hadn't have done that and experienced what she's experiencing right now.
Is the aspect of her not just being a target, but also being a perpetrator for that just kind of dysfunction?
She's not going to be a perpetrator of that. Okay. She's not going to be, that's what your higher self is saying right now. Like, yes, you're probably seeing, because my son's going through the same thing, you're probably going to see aspects of him in her, because she is in the learning phase right now, but the architectural structuring that she has is your architectural structuring. Yeah. So she's just going through growing and evolution and all that stuff right now. But in the future, she has your architectural structuring. Okay. She will work through it. She will not be a perpetrator. Okay. Now teenagers are in and of themselves manipulative and gaslighting, all these different things, because they're trying to figure out their identity and pushing boundaries and all these things. I think the question you're asking is she going to be this way when she is older, mitigating her interpersonal relationships?
Okay.
No.
I could deal with like her having to go through and learn that lesson if I was prepared for it and I knew, okay, that's starting for her now, and now I'm, can
She is going
figure
to
it
have to go
out.
through a phase where she flushes his architectural structure out of her system. But
Yeah.
in order to do that, she's got to experience it and also experience how negative of results that transpire when she chooses to run that system.
Yeah. And I also really want them to have, because I think that um, one of the most beautiful things about he and I having a daughter is that we can watch ourselves heal through her, and that come through for us as well in ways that we hadn't yet conceptualized and been able to achieve. I really do hope that they are able to maintain a close relationship that's honest, but protected.
Hopefully so. Hopefully it never gets to a point where because what your higher self is showing me is like she will choose herself.
Yeah. Okay.
She will
Okay.
choose herself. She will say, I'm not dealing with this. Like if it does come to a point, because we don't know what he's doing over here. Like
Right.
he may be like, I'm not gonna heal, I'm not gonna do any of this stuff. Like I'm just gonna keep doing all those things over here. But she will choose herself.
Okay.
She will say, I'm gonna have to hold boundaries with you. I'm not doing this. Right. So hopefully he she is the bridgeway point for
Yeah.
him to heal.
Yeah.
But she will not get caught up in that. Now, is that a okay, let me see what she's saying. Hold on. We cannot determine whether they will have a good long-standing relationship, but what we do know is that she will be a bridgeway point for him to make that decision.
Okay.
Or she will simply choose to not participate in that anymore. So higher self saying, I don't know if like that's up to him on whether or not they have
Yeah.
type of like great dynamic with one another. What your higher self and you are more concerned about is she going to step away from that if she needs to?
Yeah.
And that's what your higher self is saying. Like, yes, she will step away from that. So that's the ultimate goal here, like her safety.
Yes.
Right. So if they have a relationship, that's great. But we really want to more focus on like, hey, she will be able to step away from that and she will be able to see it and perceive it. Right now, she's not, because she's in the evolutionary phase of running those systems and seeing how that does not have good effects. And then something's going to clink and she's going to say, oh, okay, I don't want to do that stuff anymore. Right. A higher self is how old is she now?
11.
Okay. Higher self is like,
But going on like 16.
yeah, she's like, hey, buckle in though, because sometimes you're going to perceive some of those teenage manipulative tactics and all that stuff. You're going to be perceiving that it has to do with him, when actually that's just having to do with her being a teenager and having hormones.
Okay.
And pushing boundaries. So like use discernment there as well of like, is this having to do with this over here, or is this just more teenage stuff?
Right.
Right. So don't overdo it with
No, I understand. Yeah,
yeah.
it came to a head, and I, in the moment, that remembering that grief, washed over me, because I'm looking into her eyes that are so much like her father's, and
Yeah.
watching that this kind of self-abuse ripple outward into other aspects, of her relationships. And but anyway, yeah, I knew that these behaviors are typical. You did these things too, Hannah. And uh so yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We just need to check that past version of us and be like, hey, let's take a breath for a second
Mhm.
and analyze whether what's going on here. Why are we feeling this way? Where is this coming from? Is this actually representative of our now experiences? That stuff that I need to help you let go of. Like we need to do some wound healing around her, because she's the one that's pushing all that stuff up to your consciousness of danger, 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 right?
Yeah.
Or trigger, 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 trigger. So we need to help her heal a little bit more, which you can utilize your lovely light language abilities with her if you want.
Yeah.
To clear all that stuff out of her chakra system, because she has a different chakra system than you. Y'all have the same chakra system, but different levels of consciousness. So hers need to be cleared out at her level of consciousness.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So to reiterate, what we talked about is going in and speaking with Edward. Edward is a enigma, okay? Because I was like, "What are you doing here, sir?" He was like, "I've been her guardian." So he probably has. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the brooch
Yes.
calls Edward.
Okay.
When
Okay.
you need him, but he was also saying it calls a lot of other guardians or beings as well. It's like a beacon that sends out this frequency that you need something. He was very like descriptive about it, but you can go in and speak with him about the complexities of that brooch and what it does. Okay. And then speaking with Mabel, if you want to go do some astral travels with her, but honestly, that will also be running on a multi-dimensional level that y'all don't have to like super get deep into. Your light language gifts, perceiving people's spiritual gifts within them. You can also connect with that, let's call them dear person tribe if you want, and speak to that elder. He's available. He said that he would speak with you.
That realm have a name or
I didn't get a name. I've only been there one time, and when I one other time and met with a different tribe that's from that planet, but they were in a completely different section of this world. Like it was in a forest, but this time I was in like the snowy mountains, and so they were the same type of beings but different energetically a little bit because of the different biomes that they lived in. But I don't have a name for the planet. You might be able to ask Edward though, because he's the one that took me there.
okay.
He was like, "Yeah, let me show you this." And so he might be also able to help you with connecting to different timeline versions of yourself. That might be what that beacon is for, in order for you to call out to these different facets and pull them into you quicker.
Okay.
Okay. And then continuing to work with this past version of yourself to heal that. Yes.
Yeah.
And releasing the guilt. Okay. Yes. Okay. Anything else before we finish up?
No, I can't think of anything else.
Okay. What was your biggest takeaway today?
I am very intrigued by Mabel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever it is that's connecting us. You said that it was a different incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's a different incarnation of you. And the way that incarnations work too, a lot of people are looking at them as like past lives, but they're all happening at one time.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
even if that was like way back in history, you can still connect in real time. And then you can also portal jump into different timelines and different spaces within that timeline. Like I could, if I wanted to, I could jump in with Mabel being born, or Mabel being a teenager, or Mabel being an adult, in those contexts, right? So here I met her as a child because we're needing to give her guidance for this astral travel. So technically, there's a future version of her that you and I have already been working with.
Yeah.
And she already knows how to like astral travel and things of that nature. So I also have a feeling, which I am now remembering, that when I was talking to this elder, that they don't know how to astral travel, but Mabel's going to teach them.
Okay.
So you, in some levels, are teaching this whole entire tribe how to do astral travel, which is really cool. But yeah, she's a very, very sweet little girl, and I know you'll enjoy connecting and working with her. And she probably has a lot of things to teach you as well, because these I wish I had a name for them, but these deer persons, they have a lot of their own type of medicine healing. Like when he was having me sit in front of that fire, the best way that I can describe it is a shamanic journey, but it's something completely different, which I don't have languaging for because I've only been here twice now. But if you speak to that elder, he's probably going to be able to help you download in a whole bunch of other information and gifts and things of that nature. It's just a matter of cultivating time and space to connect.
Yes.
Right. That's really like you can go as far as you want. It's just, are we going to make time and space? I come across like so many things in the ethers. I'm not gonna say I don't have time to do them, but I have to weigh my options of like, what do I want to be focusing on for this incarnation? And there's a lot of things I don't do that, but I have the availability to do it. I just want to put my efforts in specific things. So if you want to talk with him, great. If not, it's not going to disrespect him.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to send you your oracle cards, and then I'm going to send you your crystal grid, and then I'll get the replay later to you today. And if there's anything else that comes up, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Sage.
Oh, you're welcome. It was wonderful meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes. Okay. Well, you have a very magical day, and tell Ruin that I said goodbye.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,